People who left their SO for the person you cheated with, how did things end up? Not good, my dude. She ended up cheating on me with her friend, then begged to be taken back for a week until I caved. 6 months later, she left me for her personal trainer, who she had also been seeing on the side. I was devastated for a couple of years. Yes, I know I deserved it. I very much wish I had stayed with the girlfriend I had cheated on, because I loved her deeply. But she was struggling with severe mental health issues, and I would see her maybe once a week, and we had did it only twice over about 6 months. I caved when another attractive girl I knew pressed hard to be with me. I regret it immensely, but it worked out better for her. She met a guy willing to take on the caretaker role I couldn't or wouldn't. My terrible relationship with the new girl eventually led me to where I am now. So in that sense, it all worked out. Story 2. Well, I cheated on my fiancé 9 to 10 years ago. It's not something I am proud of, but I own my actions. At the time, I had been with my ex for 7 years. We both worked jobs that meant we were like passing ships in the night. Everything had fizzled out in my eyes. I did love her, but more as a friend. I still wish her all the best, but when we separated, we chose not to stay in contact so we could both live our lives. On Tuesday, 2 days from now, I am marrying my fiancé, who was the other woman in that situation. She is by far a better fit for me in every way. Her family is amazing, and my family loves her. We have not rushed things and have been together for 9 years. It was a very difficult road at the start, but the reason my previous relationship ended was that I looked at my now future wife and knew I had an incredible adventure ahead with her. Anyone who is unsure in their relationship should try to resolve things before cheating. It is one of the greatest regrets of my life, and I wish I had ended things before it happened. That being said, if I could go back, I would not change anything, for the questions bound to follow. She found out when she saw my phone and a text I had sent saying that after seeing my cousin, his wife, and their child, I realized I could not see myself spending my life with my then fiancé. I could immediately see a future like that for me and my now future wife, including marriage and adventures. She woke me up and slapped me. I told her it was all true. She wanted to stay together, but I explained that this wasn't just a fling and it would be unfair to continue the relationship. We parted ways. She took anything she felt was owed to her from the house, which was fair. My family continued to see her for several years, as she was like a second daughter to them. I believe they don't talk as much anymore, but I never got in the way. Long story short, I could not be happier. I am marrying a woman I could not love more if I tried. We absolutely complete each other, and I wouldn't have it any other way. Story 3. Technically, I didn't cheat. My ex and I agreed to open the relationship. I didn't want to leave him at the time because we had a daughter, so I was mostly looking for a friends with benefit situation since he was highly neglectful. He agreed because it meant he got to keep me while being free to sleep around. Yes, I know the whole plan was completely absurd, but in the process I met a short bearded man on the internet who showed me I was selling myself short, thank you, depression, and that I deserved better. My ex and I broke up a few months later over something completely unrelated. I ended up marrying that strange man from the internet. He is truly my best friend. We've been together for 6 years now and have a 3-month-old, giving us 3 children in total, his, mine, and ours. Life isn't always perfect, but I don't regret a single choice that led me here. To tell a different story, my grandma was cheated on by her first husband who married the other woman. They are still together to this day, over 40 years later. She was also cheated on by her second husband, who married his affair partner as well. They were together for more than 25 years until she passed away a little over a year ago. My grandma was also cheated on by her third partner. They never married. His affair partner was her best friend since kindergarten. Literally, they had known each other for around 50 years. Number 3 left my grandma, and the friend left her husband of 30 years. They stayed together until my grandma died about 3 years ago. Through all of this, my grandma remained friends with all of them. She even lived with husband number 2 and his affair partner for a few years when she decided to retire to North Carolina because she loved the beaches. She only came back because she got bored and missed her family. She never had any other children with husband number 2 or 3, and she never had another partner after number 3. I love my grandma, but she was a doormat and honestly, not great at relationships. Still, as far as I know, in the end, she was happy and content with her life. Her 3 children, 10 grandchildren, and 2 great-grandchildren. Unfortunately, she passed away before she got to officially meet her second great-grandchild. Story 4. My ex cheated on me with a woman 10 years older than he was. We broke up, and a year later, he married her and they had a child. We both moved on. I got married about 2 years ago, and a month after our wedding, the Santa Fe, New Mexico. Police called my husband's phone asking to get in touch with me about my ex. My phone is under my mom's plan, and we do not share a last name because my parents are divorced. They couldn't tell me what it was about, but I knew it had to be serious. They asked if he had ever hurt me, if he had borrowed money from my parents, and whether he had a criminal past. It was surreal. To make a long story short, about 8 months later, I found out he had put a hit out on his father-in-law, who was beaten within an inch of his life for $10,000. He cashed the check. He also ended up robbing a bank in Albuquerque by threatening the teller with the cartel. Between all this, he stole a rental car. I know because he gave them my number, so I was getting texts from Enterprise reporting it stolen. He was also cheating on his wife with a random woman he met at a casino. The cops got my number because, when questioned, he claimed he was in debt and blamed me. He also tried to take out credit cards in my name, and my full credit report had a lot of Santa Fe information on it. He is now awaiting trial for all of this and has rejected the plea deal that was offered. Story 5. My first husband fell in love with a girl from work. We had even hung out with her, taken her out to dinner, and I even let her stay at our house. I stood by my ex, even after his DUI and legal issues. During our separation and even through the divorce, he treated me terribly. He didn't want to file, but would tell me to move out, even though we were still legally married. I focused on myself, worked on personal growth, traveled, went to therapy, and put myself first. Fast forward about 3 years after our separation, I met my amazing boyfriend. As far as I know, my ex is still single, was on some dating sites, and the girl he was so in love with has long since broken up with him. Whenever he would text or call to hang out, I told him to kick rocks. I also told him that I am a once-in-a-lifetime kind of woman. He just responded with, yeah. He also said that all the women out there are crap. I told him, I guess you're attracting what you currently are. I've been with my boyfriend for over a year, and we are currently planning a few trips together, one of which I think he might propose on. Being Indian, we are unofficially engaged. In our culture, once our parents know about a significant other, it's implied that you will be marrying and getting engaged soon. Story 6. My fiance and I are as happy as can be. We were both in terrible, abusive relationships before finding each other, and we saved each other. I don't want to get too much into the details, but both of our exes were awful people. I used to think the way I was treated and the way I felt was normal, that everyone experienced this. I thought true love and soulmates were just fantasies, and that I was being unrealistic and idealistic to hope for more happiness or to feel truly loved by a spouse. Then, I saw the love of my life. She walked into work one day, and I fell in love with her instantly, before she even spoke, before she even looked at me. She says she felt the exact same way. I used to think love at first sight was a myth, and when I heard people say they had experienced it, I always thought they were lying. We started seeing each other in secret shortly after that, and a few months later, we left our exes. The divorces were ugly and traumatic, but leaving a bad situation usually is. Horrible people will try to keep you attached to them until the bitter end. Do I condone cheating? No. It's a terrible thing to do to someone, generally speaking. But do I regret doing it? Not for a second. My biggest regret isn't that I cheated. It's that I ever associated with my ex. If I could take back all the years I wasted with her, I would do it in a heartbeat. I don't know what my life would be like if things hadn't happened the way they did. I might never have been at the same job in the same place where I met the love of my life if I hadn't met my ex. So, if the cheating is what it took to get me here, then so be it. I'm not justifying cheating or saying it always works out, but I am happier now than ever, and it's been years. Story 7. I didn't cheat, but I'll share my ex-wife's path. She had a boyfriend for the last 3 years of our 8-year marriage. One random morning, she finally worked up the courage to tell me. We had talked about divorce for a few weeks prior, so I wasn't shocked at all. I knew because I had talked to her through the whole process. I was her best friend and helped her with her journey. Her thinking was that she loved this guy, who was 5 years younger, and she needed to divorce me so she could marry him. Why the sudden need? His visitor visa had expired. She signed the papers and flew her boyfriend in from the West Coast to Philadelphia. He had moved a couple of weeks prior. She was gone for 8 days and called me to pick her up at the airport, and I did. Sitting in a Denny's, I asked her what happened. She told me he was living in his work van and using some drug. I asked if it was marijuana, and she said it was a powder. She had drained her checking and savings accounts, staying in a hotel and giving him money. I fed her and asked what she wanted to do. I drove her back to my house and bought her a plane ticket to her family in Oklahoma for the next day. I slept on the couch. The next morning, I drove her to the airport. She told me she was sorry for everything, and I told her it was okay, and that she needed to chase her passion, something she had always told me, so I figured it fit. She was going home to talk to her family about getting married to this guy and helping him out. I don't know much after that except for the final part. I called to let her know the divorce was final, and she was happy. 2 days later, she called me crying and apologizing. He had broken up with her and blocked her everywhere. She said he completely stopped contacting her after she told him the divorce was final. She wanted to come back and undo the divorce, but I said no for the first time in my life, and the conflict started shortly after. As for what she is doing now, I don't know and could not care less. She and a friend had both decided to divorce their husbands at the same time. My ex-wife went through with it, but her friend later told her she couldn't. Story 8. My uncle, my mom's brother, had a very messy affair in the past with his mistress. He was in the army and had a lot of benefits, but his wife, who is still legally married to him today, filed a legal case of adultery and bigamy against him and his mistress. The case eventually went to court, and he lost his job in the army. They've been keeping a low profile for years because the case was active, and there was even a warrant issued against him. He's had a difficult life since then, unable to get a decent job due to the legal actions his wife took. Right now, he has 6 children with his mistress, but we recently heard that their family is struggling, and he and his mistress are on the verge of separating. Meanwhile, his 2 children from his legal wife have had a good life, despite having no communication with their father. The legal wife is happy and content with the prosperity her children have brought her and is now more focused on her spiritual growth and inner peace. None of them care about their estranged father, who is now trying to reconnect after years of rejecting his legal children, likely out of desperation, as he doesn't want his illegitimate children to know he had a first family. Karma will catch up eventually. He is my blood-related uncle, but I would broadly say he deserves everything that came from his cheating. Story 9. My ex-husband left me for another woman when our children were 3 years old and 3 months old, supposedly because I hadn't lost the baby weight. In reality, he met a waitress who turned out to be the daughter of a wealthy restaurateur, and he moved out of state to marry her and enjoy her family's success. Fast forward to today. She now weighs 400 pounds and they can't stand each other. Fortunately, I never spoke ill of my ex-husband, his wife, or her father, even though he harassed me when I sought child support. Regardless of what happened between us, my children deserved the chance to know their father and form their own opinions. I always tried to be honest with them in an age-appropriate and unbiased way. Over the years, I hoped my ex-husband had just made poor choices because he was young, and that he would mature over time and have a good relationship with our children. No such luck. It turns out he, his wife, and her family are simply terrible people. Astonishingly wealthy, but miserable and morally bankrupt. It was difficult, but I'm grateful I kept my mouth shut and didn't let my family speak poorly of him. Kids aren't naive. They figure out the truth in their own time. My ex-husband left and got exactly what he wanted, but from what I've seen, money doesn't buy happiness. At least, not in his case. Story 10. My ex-husband cheated on me and left me for her. By all accounts, they were happy for a short time, an extremely short time. Once the thrill of cheating faded, they were left with nothing but each other. In the end, my ex-husband wound up alone and miserable because the woman he left me for cheated on him repeatedly. Karma. Story 11. My father did this when I was 14. He left my mom out of nowhere for a younger woman he had been cheating with for a year. He gave her the world. The whole time, she had a boyfriend her age who was in on the plan to take everything from my dad. After a few years, my dad was left with absolutely nothing, while she quietly built a new life with her boyfriend in a different country. You'd think he learned his lesson, but no. It happened 3 more times. His current partner is in her early 20s, while he is in his late 70s. Story 12. My ex-husband of 28 years left me for a coworker. It's been 4 years, and they're still together, but he's not happy. Not because of her necessarily, but because he's just one of those moody men. To make matters worse, one child won't talk to him, and the other 2 only tolerate him. I got a fair settlement in the divorce, and his mistress quit her job right after she moved in with her son. I'm no contact, but I've heard he's aged 10 years and drinks a lot. Oh well. Story 13. My ex cheated on me for about 6 months leading up to our wedding. Luckily, she told me, and we broke up a month before the ceremony. That was 5 years ago, and they're still together. though by all accounts they're completely insufferable to be around according to her former best friend. It's disappointing that karma didn't catch up to her the way it has in some other stories here, but the best revenge really is a life well lived, and I'm in a much better place with a much better person now. Story 14. Not me, but my father cheated on my mother with her best friend. They had an affair for 4 years. I was 17 when the divorce happened. My mother couldn't afford to keep me, and my father wasn't really an option for me at the time, so I moved out on my own. My father and the affair partner married a few years after the divorce and are now happily married in their 10th year. My parents didn't speak for 5 years. My father and his wife tried to create one happy blended family, but nobody was on board with that. I have 2 siblings, and my father's wife has 2 children, people I've known my whole life. We've been friends since we were born. They're not my step-siblings. They're simply my friends. And they're my siblings' friends. We're not a family, and we never attend the same family events when my father and his wife host something. I don't really like my father. I show up occasionally, and my siblings are okay with him. Story 15. It didn't happen to me, but to someone close to me. A couple had been married for about 25 years. They were decent friends to each other and had 2 kids, but they were absolutely not in love. He met a woman at work. They fell hard for each other, and after about 4 to 5 years of resisting, they finally gave in to their feelings. Eventually, they divorced their respective partners and married each other. This was about 10 years ago, and they are the happiest couple I have ever seen. Their eyes light up when they look at each other, and they seem to share a kind of secret language. One look or touch is enough for them to understand each other. Despite the cheating and all the drama that followed, seeing them together is genuinely magical. Story 16. My ex-husband and I got married young, right out of high school. He was a raging addict and incredibly abusive. That's not an excuse. I still feel guilt for hurting him, but I know I did what I needed to do. When I met my current spouse, my ex and I had been married for 7 years. He hadn't worked in 4, and I had been scraping by to support our little family of 4 on my own. I finally decided to go back to college to try to find a better job. On my first day of class, my current husband sat next to me, introduced himself, and the rest is history. He was so kind, genuinely gentle and caring in a way I had never experienced before. I hate that I hurt my ex, even if he was abusive, but ultimately, I made the right choice, and I don't regret it for a second. My husband and I have been together for 6 years now, and it's truly been the happiest 6 years of my life and my children's lives. The love, light, and freedom from fear we have now are worlds apart from the life we used to live. Story 17. I'm the left spouse. She hooked up with the guy, constantly denied he was her boyfriend, would go through her splitting episodes on him. I'm so glad that wasn't me anymore. And then be happy with him again. This cycle lasted about 4 to 6 months at a time and repeated for roughly 9 years. Eventually, he passed away from a massive heart attack. While my daughter was helping her clean out his house, they found a stash of condoms. Apparently, my ex completely broke down because they weren't for her, suggesting they had engaged in physical relation without protection. This was strong evidence that he hadn't been faithful. My daughter was happy to relay all of this to me because she was old enough to understand why my marriage fell apart. While she loves her mom on some level, she also holds her accountable for her actions. I'll admit, I felt a nearly lethal dose of schadenfreude upon hearing it. I will say my ex has become somewhat more, not humble, but something like that, since everything happened. What really helps, though, is that I found a partner with whom I'm exceptionally happy, whom my kids love, and with whom I have a very healthy relationship. There's no doubt to anyone that I'm both happier and healthier now than I ever was with my ex. Meanwhile, it's clear my ex knows she messed up, has no chance to recover anything in the relationship, and will no longer be receiving anything from me in 2.5 years when alimony ends. I'm off living my best life and feeling deeply satisfied. Story 18. I was married for 4 years to my first husband. By almost every account, we were happy and comfortable. I wasn't looking for anyone else, and neither was he. One day, I met someone online while playing a video game, and I'll never be able to explain what happened, but we were instantly drawn to each other like magnets. We kept bumping into each other, had a few mutual friends, and quickly became close friends ourselves. My first husband had no interest in the game I was playing, so it was easy to spend a lot of time with this new friend. I couldn't stop thinking about him. He lived in a different country, and we'd never discussed having feelings for each other, but my thoughts were completely consumed by him. I didn't know what he looked like or how old he was, yet I had developed an intense crush on someone I knew almost nothing meaningful about. I came clean to my husband about my feelings, and I told my friend that I had a massive crush on him. My first husband wanted to work through it, but my heart just wasn't in it anymore. I flew to another country to meet my new friend and had a 10-day trip booked so we could see what our feelings meant and whether we were compatible. I never used my return ticket. That was over 8 years ago. My ex-husband and I divorced amicably, and he is remarried now and, as far as I know, happy. I ended up marrying the online friend I had developed that unbelievable crush on. We're incredibly happy together and make a great team. We communicate better than I've ever communicated with anyone in my life. We have a 6-year-old daughter, and she is the light of our lives. He is a wonderful husband, partner, and father. I don't feel entirely good about what I did to my first husband. I don't think he deserved it, but I'm glad it happened while we were both still young. He moved on, and I ended up with my soulmate. My current husband and I are still like magnets. We play every game together, hang out constantly, flirt, and text all day. We're just as into each other as we were the day I got off that plane to meet him. Story 19. My sister left her husband after cheating on him to marry her affair partner, who was also married and, to make matters worse, had 2 children. When the affair came out, her husband, a genuinely kind man, still wanted to try to make things work, but she apparently didn't, so she left. The aftermath really messed up her life. My parents were furious with her for destroying 2 marriages and betraying their son-in-law, whom they genuinely liked. She and my mother were not on speaking terms for years afterward. My mother's decision, not my sister's. They eventually reconciled after my mother had a health scare that nearly killed her. My sister, her affair partner, and her husband all worked at the same place, and understandably, most of their mutual friends took her husband's side and wanted nothing to do with her or her partner afterward. Her new partner's ex-wife was an absolute terror to them, which was somewhat understandable, and her 2 new stepchildren both resented her for breaking up their family. For what it's worth, this all happened about 15 years ago, and they are still together and seem happy. Story 20. My dad cheated on my mom and left her for another woman. They were separated, not divorced. Somehow, the other woman's friend got my mom's contact details. We still don't know how, and called her, warning that this woman had a habit of seducing married men, and that if my mom divorced my dad, she'd take him. Being the theatrical person she is, my mom handed my dad the divorce papers on their wedding anniversary. Sure enough, once everything was finalized, the other woman became distant. Unfortunately, my dad was diagnosed with leukemia shortly after. Guess who took us to see him in the hospital every single day and was his best friend and confidant all the way to the end? My superhero mom. The other woman was nowhere to be seen and couldn't be contacted, not even for the funeral. To clarify, when I say she took us every day, I mean 7 days a week. All the nurses and doctors knew us personally and would even bring us meals during their breaks. Story 21. My ex was a toxic, verbally abusive, and manipulative person. I met him when I was 19 and he was 26. It started with what I now recognize as love bombing and slowly progressed into abuse and control. During lockdown, I met a wonderful guy who made me realize that what my ex was doing was wrong and that I didn't deserve to be treated that way. I shouldn't have cheated, but I was so scared to end the relationship that I was grateful to be in lockdown, so he couldn't reach me. That wonderful guy and I are still together now, 3 years later, engaged and happier than ever in a healthy, loving relationship. Back then, he helped me gather my things from my ex's house, stood by my side to make sure I wasn't hurt, and ultimately changed my life for the better. Who knows what could have happened if I had stayed with that terrible person? Cheating is not okay, but I don't regret it. If I could go back, I'd do it all over again. And on the off chance my ex sees this, screw you. Story 22. My parents were the cheated on spouses and are now married to each other. My dad's first marriage was a disaster. His first wife began cheating on him almost immediately. He stayed and tried to make it work, but finally called it quits when he caught her cheating with one of his close friends. They divorced. That close friend, whom my dad's first wife had been cheating with, that was my mom's first husband. My mom's first marriage was a nightmare. Her first husband was physically and mentally abusive, and a serial cheater on top of that. Like many abusers, he was charming and well-liked in public, but in private, he was violent and controlling. She barely escaped with her life and managed to divorce him. A year later, living in a small town, my parents would occasionally run into each other while out with friends. Something sparked, and they began seeing each other. Another year went by, and my parents got married. A second marriage for both of them. I was born before their first anniversary. My dad's ex-wife is now on her 4th husband, while my mom's ex-husband never remarried. My parents have been married to each other for over 30 years. Story 23. My friend married a guy we'll call Sam. Sam's ex tried calling and messaging my friend on social media, but Sam told her to block the ex because she was crazy. My friend blocked her. She later discovered that Sam had cheated on his ex with her. Curious, she connected with the ex and got all the gory details. She began snooping in Sam's phone and found out he was cheating on her as well. She went to the ex for advice, and the ex invited her to a group chat of Sam's ex-partners, all women he had cheated on. None of them knew about each other at the time, but one ex connected them all, and now they're good friends. Meanwhile, Sam is out there looking for his next partner. He's even hit on me a few times. I'm very happily married and not shopping around for an STI. Meanwhile, the exes get together for wine and movie nights. Story 24. They are going great, actually. I got a 3-bedroom apartment with my soon-to-be wife and our 2 kids, a 14-year-old daughter and a newborn. I also got a better-paying job and am in the process of getting a car. My ex-girlfriend was a terrible person, though she didn't start off that way. She knew she had mental health issues, but refused to get help. And over time, she grew worse and took it all out on me. She used her unresolved trauma from an abusive ex to abuse me in return, financially, emotionally, and physically. I couldn't have friends of my own while she used hers to constantly keep tabs on me. She was obsessed with having a baby and the perfect wedding. Everything was always about her wants, her needs, her plans. Over time, I started to feel like I was just a tool to help her get what she wanted, rather than a partner. Just a key to unlock the perfect wedding and a baby. As time went on, I stopped wanting to be with her, and she would throw ultimatums and arguments at me because all of her friends were getting married, so why wasn't she? It was a complete crap show toward the end, with us breaking up a few times before ending it for good. Story 25. My ex-husband cheated on me with a coworker who was also married. Within days of me kicking him out, she went back to her husband. He then entered another long-term relationship, got engaged, and ended up cheating on her with a cocktail waitress during a cruise they had taken together, which I believe he said was a gift from her family. He called me to admit that he did it again, meaning he had blown up his life by cheating. We started talking again, strictly as friends, and haven't seen each other in person for many years. He ended up marrying the cruise ship waitress. One day, I got a message from him saying that she told him he couldn't be friends with me anymore, and to have a nice life. A few months later, he messaged again saying they had talked, and now his wife said we could be friends. I laughed. Obviously, he isn't my friend. For my part, I was a good wife, a good ex-wife, and a good friend to him, and I owe him nothing. I have no idea what's going on with him now, but I feel like at some point, I'll get a call or a message from him telling me how karma finally served him his due. Story 26. My uncle cheated on my aunt and left her for a woman 30 years younger. Things were kept hush-hush because my aunt and most of her family are people of the church and didn't want a scandal. Thankfully, all the children were adults at the time. He stayed with the mistress for 10 years, enjoying trips, jewelry, and fine dining. But when he got cancer and needed around-the-clock care, even needing diapers at one point, she dumped him and disappeared. He returned to my aunt and used the church to persuade her to take him back, with arguments like, "He is the father of your children, and he is dying. Do the Christian thing." Unfortunately, it worked. She became his private nurse for 8 months until he passed away. I don't know the details of what happened during that time. Story 27. My ex did this. She had pursued him heavily for years while we were married, all while having children with other men. I was told she was more fun and that there was no structure for her kids. Much more fun. After they got together, she, surprise, got pregnant to lock things down. In the years since, I've taken time to slowly build a life, family, and career that I'm truly happy with, alongside a wonderful partner. My extended family has received debt collector calls trying to track him down. There are a lot of struggles on his end, and he's complained about the lack of respect he gets from the kids and the consequences of the lack of structure. I simply shrug and say, sorry, but all I can think is karma. Story 28. My ex-husband loves to say I cheated. My so-called emotional affair was literally me falling for a friend who treated me like a woman should be treated by a partner. My ex would leave me home alone while he spent all day at the casino, claiming it was just with work friends. He would tell me I was replaceable, withhold intimacy and physical reaction as punishment if I didn't stay home all day, and even said he would catch me cheating, putting up cameras to watch me. He got mad when he saw me crying about being alone. I couldn't even play online video games because that was how his ex had cheated on him, according to him. My second husband and I never did anything until my divorce was final. Not even a real date. We just spent time with a large friend group we had in common, and I had known his family for years. I'm far happier married to my emotional affair. Story 29. My first marriage lasted 8 years. The first 3 years were wonderful. After the birth of our son, a planned pregnancy after 3 years of marriage, he became physically and emotionally abusive and refused to work. We had a close friend group that had been together since high school. One of the men became aware of what was happening and would intervene, either by getting one of us out of the house or calming him down. After a couple of years, this friend and I fell in love and started an affair. We never denied it or hid it from my husband, our families, or our friends. Because my family was wealthy and my ex knew I had a large inheritance coming when I turned 30, he refused to grant a divorce. We lived a very comfortable lifestyle thanks to my high-income career, and my parents supplemented my income so I could live the way I had been raised. It took me 5 years to finalize my divorce. My partner and I married 3 days after it was final, and we remained married until his death 36 years later. Neither of us were ever unfaithful, nor did we ever question each other's fidelity. If you have to wonder, then you probably shouldn't be in that relationship. I acknowledge that I was wrong to have an affair and that what happened was unfair to my ex, but I couldn't change the way I felt for someone else. Not everyone who cheats will cheat again, and every situation is different. Story 30. I plan to marry him. I know those stories don't usually end that way, but it worked out for me. I'm not proud of my actions and regret that I stooped so low. My relationship with my ex, we were together for 4 years but never married, was unhealthy. He was an alcoholic who would drive drunk, break my trust by drinking behind my back, and manipulate me into thinking it wasn't that bad. He would smash his phone when blacked out, once threw a chair in my presence when upset, and had holes punched in his walls. He loved me deeply, but he never listened to my needs, and I began falling out of love. I met someone at work I truly clicked with, and I don't say that lightly. I hadn't had a crush on anyone first since 8th grade. I don't bend for a single crumb of male validation. I've had men hit on me or DM me in previous relationships and ignored them, but my now partner was different. So different. We ended up spending more time together, and when my ex betrayed me one final time, I knew I was going to break up with him. My mind was made up. I felt myself growing emotionally close to my now partner, and I let it happen. I was being selfish. I made out with him and immediately hated my actions. I felt terrible for going behind my ex's back. I broke up with my ex the next day and didn't tell him in advance. It was a reckless move, but I knew I would never speak to him again, so I ended it swiftly. I was casual with my now partner for a while because I needed time to reflect and understand the root of my issues. I grew a lot, and I realized he was truly what I wanted. I deeply regret what I did back then, and I'm genuinely sorry for it. I still agonize over it because the thought of ever repeating such a selfish betrayal feels unbearable to me. I'm so happy now, sometimes happier than I feel I deserve, but I found my person. I made terrible choices, and there's no denying that. I'm grateful for my partner, and I can't wait to spend my life with him. I just wish I had done things the right way from the start. Story 31. My dad left my mom after more than 30 years of marriage. He lived a double life for a while and brought his mistress from overseas. He would tell us he had to go on work trips and leave for weeks at a time, but he was actually spending that time with the other woman and taking her on trips around the country. Eventually, he confessed and somehow convinced my mom to let him build a granny flat at the back of their property so his mistress could move in. My mom, desperate to have him back, agreed. He wanted the 3 of them to get along so he could have both women. It didn't work out, and he blamed my mom for being difficult and for raising the kids without manners because 2 of his 3 children refused to even look at his mistress. After a lot of drama, he moved out with his mistress. We haven't seen him in years. Story 32. My dad left my mom for his mistress. It was his second affair. The woman left her husband and moved into a tiny shack with my dad, but she had no job or car, and he completely isolated her. She finally realized he was a narcissist and left him less than a year later. My dad went through a string of girlfriends, each one worse than the last. One woman's mother even got my mom's number and began harassing her, asking for help to break them up. Eventually, he married a woman even more narcissistic than he is, got suckered into paying off her mortgage while she stockpiled for retirement, and now he is miserable. I have been no contact with him for a while and couldn't be happier to be rid of his nonsense. Story 33. My ex-husband of almost 13 years left me for a coworker who was married with young children. whom he had known for only a few months last summer and fall. He now posts sappy reels about her and their love story on Instagram. I have no sympathy for either of them. Only terrible people do what they did. I wasn't perfect, that's for sure, but nothing except his own inability to hold down a job or take care of himself properly forced him to stay with me for 13 years. Since he left, it has become clear that he used me for financial security while actively resenting my success. He jumped ship as soon as he found someone equally unhappy with themselves who would take on his problems and share finances. Without the history of knowing him when he was still living in his mother's basement, getting fired from multiple jobs, and struggling to get hired elsewhere. It doesn't help that he gaslighted me for 3 months and continued sleeping with me while trying to convince me they were just friends, and that he was looking for a short-term rental to take a break so we could start dating again. When in reality, they were looking for a place together and talking about marriage. I don't think about them much anymore, and I don't hate them. I just literally don't care if they become the most miserable human beings on earth. Story 34. I got married in 2013 when I was 23 and my husband was 22. We were both working at Sam's Club. In 2014, I fell in love at first sight. I saw this handsome guy, and I immediately regretted getting married. We all started hanging out, and at a party I confessed to him that I found him very attractive. We started hooking up in 2016. Things were not great with my husband, but that was not an excuse for what I did. I got caught at a family reunion while texting the person I was cheating with. I was saying that I no longer wanted to be there, that the party was lame, and that I would rather be with him. My husband looked over my shoulder, took my phone, and started reading the messages. We divorced, and I got with the guy I had been cheating with. I had 2 kids with him, but he turned out to be a narcissist. That felt like karma at its finest. I have stayed with him because I feel like I deserve it. My ex-husband was an amazing person and never treated me badly. I feel awful, and I am very sorry, but I can't undo what happened. Story 35. My ex-fiancé from years ago cheated on me with a guy behind my back. A friend of mine saw them together in public and told me. When I confronted her and reached out to some of her friends to confirm what happened, I learned she had also been trying to baby trap me by deliberately not using contraception and lying to me about it. It was absolutely wild how unhinged the situation turned out to be. After I split up with her, she tried to have a relationship with the other guy, but she ended up getting pregnant by him, unplanned. After the birth of her daughter, it came out that she had been cheating on him as well. Now she is a single mother with no partner. She regularly posts about how much men are trash, and then, in the next breath, posts nice girl content. She seems like a lost cause, but I feel bad for her child. Story 36. I was with a girl for 5 years, and we were going to get married. 4 months before the wedding, I cheated on her with a girl I really liked, although she barely knew me beyond my existence. For almost a month, I was torn between the two of them, unsure what the right choice was. Marry the woman who loved me like a god and risk destroying everything. We had paid for the church, rented a house, bought furniture, given a deposit to the restaurant, and she had even chosen a wedding dress. Or be with the new woman who already had a child with no certainty the relationship would last. After a lot of thought, and after overcoming the fear of upsetting my parents and my future wife, I told her the truth and ended everything. Now, 8 years later, I am married to the new woman, and we have a 4-year-old daughter. Her daughter from before is also fully my daughter in my heart. Everyone close to me at the time of the breakup says I made the right choice, although I obviously should have done it sooner, without all the delays and complications. The truth is, when I cheated and had to make a decision, my heart was telling me I should have ended things from the very first night it happened. But the pressure from society and family was too much. Always listen to your heart. I love my wife deeply and we are very happy together. I have never, for a moment, thought what if. Follow your heart, people. Story 37. This isn't about me. I'm in a happy relationship and expect it to stay that way as we communicate really well. This is about a relative instead. M, a relative on my father's side, was married to a toxic wife who had both narcissistic personality disorder and Munchausen syndrome, including by proxy. They have an autistic son together. His wife constantly manipulated the family, including my mother, who jumped through hoops to help her only to be exploited and pushed aside afterward. His wife would pretend to have medical conditions that doctors repeatedly disproved, and would lie about her son having physical illnesses he never had, greatly impeding his already stunted development. She would go in and out of mental hospitals during episodes and would smile her way through family therapy, only to return home and behave the same way. She threatened to hurt herself if M left, making him feel guilty, and he stayed in the now loveless marriage for over a decade. She also isolated her son from contact with others, even though he desperately needed interaction with people close to him to support his development with autism, including seeing the same few people regularly to form bonds. Eventually, M found a lot of support in a coworker who would listen and be there for him. She had recently divorced after years of abuse herself, I believe. Their support developed into a secret affair. He kept it hidden out of fear that his mentally ill wife might hurt herself or their son. Eventually, the secret came out. His now ex-wife did hurt herself, but she was placed under the custodianship of her mother and into a semi-independent mental health facility. M gained custody of his son and is now living with the person he had the affair with. They seem happy, and the last time I heard, his son is accepting of her too, which he does with very few people. Admittedly, it's true that many women aren't taken seriously by doctors when they do have physical issues. Doctors can be quick to dismiss symptoms as common woman pains that will supposedly go away on their own. But M's ex-wife was a textbook example of someone with Munchausen syndrome and later Munchausen by proxy. People with that condition can be terrifying. The worst cases involve individuals who will poison their own child or spouse just so they can nurse them back to health and gain attention and sympathy from others. It is an incredibly disturbed condition, and people like that should be under constant supervision, much like she is now. Story 38. My dad, who has since passed away, was a serial cheater. He cheated on my mom repeatedly, and she never did anything about it because she was raised to be obedient to her husband. He would fly to other countries to see girlfriends overseas and spoil them, but he never treated my mom or his kids, me and my siblings, the same way. He always told his mother, my grandmother, that he was going to find the perfect wife while still married to my mom. He met a divorced woman through a chat room, went to see her, and didn't come back for almost a year. While with her, he did all the chores and cooking for her and her child. He even bought her child birthday presents, something he never did for his own kids. He never did any of this for my mom. Eventually, the new woman started cheating on him, and he tried to worm his way back into my mom's life. When she refused to take him back, he threatened to kill her and my siblings who were still living at home. He was eventually arrested and sent to jail. This was when my mom finally divorced him. After he got out of jail, he moved to another city and met another woman to whom he gave all his money. Years later, my mom received a call that he was sick, and his new partner dropped him off at a homeless shelter. We found out he had cancer. My dad had a life insurance policy that my brother had paid for, and his new partner demanded $50,000 to take care of him. My brother declined, and my dad ended up in hospice care. My mom wouldn't let him die alone, visiting him frequently until his death. Story 39. A close friend cheated on her ex. He was a lazy, narcissistic jerk who treated her like a house servant. This was many years ago, almost 20 come to think of it, and we were young. I actually liked the guy at first. He was hardworking, intelligent, and charismatic. I just didn't see what was really happening behind closed doors until much later. Eventually, she fell for a colleague of his who turned out to be an absolute gentleman. She left the ex, and he was crushed beyond belief. She and the new man stayed together, and he truly adores her. Their relationship is almost unbelievable in how healthy it is. They are married with children now, and are the epitome of a happy couple. Story 40. My dad left my mom when I was 4. He used to take me and my older sister to cheat on my mom at a Motel 6. He'd get us one room and take the woman to another. We were about 4 and 8 at the time. He eventually married her, and they had 2 more children together. When I was 9, he told me he was washing his hands of me and sent me back to my mom. Since then, I've only seen him a few times. I'm 27 now. He's still married to his wife, and together they have 4 kids. My sister and I don't speak to any of them, and she's seen him even less than I have. There was gossip that she cheated once. He'd had a vasectomy, and she still got pregnant. It could have failed, of course, but shortly after they found out, a random man showed up at their house looking for her. My step-siblings turned him away, but apparently my dad and stepmom fought heavily about it. Story 41. So, not about me, but about my parents. I was 15 when my mom turned off the TV one Sunday morning and told me she and my dad were going to separate. She also said she had done something wrong and that my dad was a good man for being willing to work through it with her. He had offered to try, but she turned him down. She had been unhappy for a while, apparently. She'd been cheating with her boss, the person she traveled with for work almost every week. She got an apartment in our city, and I spent weekends with her. She started openly dating her boss and brought him home one weekend after about a month or so. He was a complete jerk, brash, arrogant, and a loudmouth. They stayed together for about a year before he ruined Christmas during what I think was my junior year of high school. He got drunk at a Christmas dinner I looked forward to every year and talked all kinds of trash to everyone at the table. I ended up driving them back to her apartment and then leaving. I went to my girlfriend's house, showing up in tears because everything had boiled over at a dinner that had always been nothing but happiness for me. Thankfully, my girlfriend's parents loved me by that point. We had been together for around 2 years, and they welcomed me inside for a while. Later, my friend, whose house the Christmas dinner had been at, called and told me to come stay there for the night. My mom broke up with him a few weeks later, and she fell into a depression for a while. By the time I graduated, she was doing better, but she still wasn't completely herself. The whole situation just sucked. Story 42. My mom left my dad for a man who swore he would leave his wife and marry her. He didn't. Instead, he took a trip with my mom and dumped her by simply not showing up for the return flight. She always told me she tried to get my dad back afterward, but he was already seeing someone, and she stayed bitter about that for years. After she died, my dad told me what really happened. She did ask to come back, but not as a couple. She wanted to move into the finished attic while he stayed on the second floor, so they could co-parent while she continued dating other people. Not surprisingly, he said no. My mom never really got over it. She played the victim and kept dating married men, always shocked and upset when they wouldn't leave their wives for her. It was honestly bizarre. Up until she died, she stayed bitter and sad about losing her best friend, my dad. But you don't treat your best friend that way. She struggled with mental health and self-esteem issues and ended up spending the rest of her life alone, while my dad has been happily remarried for more than 30 years. Story 43. I left my 30-year-old boyfriend of 2 years after I cheated with someone closer to my age. I was 21 at the time. That person and I have now been together for 10 years, got married last year, and are enjoying our lives. I was wrong for cheating, but I think it came from a place of self-sabotage. My ex wanted to move me across the country to his home state. He was so much older, and I was just starting to become an adult. I wanted to explore that new freedom, and he wanted me barefoot and pregnant in the kitchen, making him dinner every night. I wasn't mature enough to break up before cheating, and I think I was just spiraling and making a lot of poor choices because I felt trapped. My ex took it pretty hard and stalked me on social media until I got engaged about 2 years ago, when he finally deleted me. It was a messed up thing to do, but I'm glad things worked out the way they did. My relationship with my husband had its bumps along the way. We grew a lot together, but we're in a great place now and couldn't be happier. I don't think I could have done that kind of personal growth with a partner who was so much older. Story 44. My daughter's dad cheated on me. I had no idea, and we had already broken up by the time I found out. I came across an unknown email address, one of the additional accounts you could have from a master AOL account, which was mine at the time. When I looked it up, it linked to his profile on illicit affairs. His photo and bio were there. I could recognize the background in his profile photo, which meant I could roughly date it to before I was pregnant with our daughter. We had split when she was around a year old. He ended up marrying the woman he'd been cheating with, but both my daughter and I still saw him pop up in the People You May Know section on Twitter, under the name Magic Hands, with a bare-chested profile picture. I couldn't resist reading his tweets and replies. It was oddly reassuring to realize the problem wasn't me. He's just a dog and still cheating. At least he's someone else's problem now, and I have zero sympathy for his wife. It's just a shame that my daughter had to see her dad like that. Story 45. I wasn't married, but engaged when I met and cheated with my now wife, Rita, whom I've been with for 22 years. I ended up breaking things off with my fiancée, Allison, just 2 weeks before the ceremony, after a lot of money had already been spent on the wedding. Rita made it clear she would end things if I went through with the marriage. What had started as a fling quickly became something much more meaningful to me. I knew how I felt about Rita, so the decision was easy. I had been unhappy for some time, and the closer we got to the wedding, the more I realized that I was the least important part of Allison's big day. From the beginning of the relationship, she expressed that she wanted marriage and kids, and I felt ready to settle down. I was 30 and had been divorced from my first marriage for 5 years. I figured she was just excited about having a fairy tale wedding because she talked about it a lot. I was naive, stupid, and blind, and I proposed after a year of dating. I don't know how else to explain it, but she became so obsessively focused on the planning that I literally felt like a bystander. We fought a lot. I felt ignored, and I knew the end was coming. I think Allison sensed it too. One evening, Rita even warned me to check Allison's birth control. She always left her meds in my bathroom window, and sure enough, she had stopped taking them 13 days earlier. After a fight where I had told her I was really unhappy, I confronted her and said I wanted to end things. I really thought she would have a meltdown, we'd break up, and I could move on with Rita. Instead, she got very quiet and said, "You can just come and do the ceremony, but you don't have to sign the license. We'll work on things after." That was pretty shocking. I realized I could have been anyone willing to marry her, so I got out. It was ugly, and the fallout lasted for a few months. I married Rita the following year, and 4 kids and 1 grandchild later, we are still happily together. Story 46. Not me, my mom. My mom left my dad for her personal trainer back in 2006. I was 10 at the time. My parents had a staying together for the kids type of marriage, but they weren't miserable. They still slept in the same room, went on vacations together, and even went on double dates. My mom gaslit my dad and everyone else, saying she was leaving just because. She refused to admit she was seeing anyone, even when my dad confronted her with proof. She moved out and pretended to be single for another 6 months, then tried to play it off as if she had suddenly fallen in love with her trainer. It's been 17 years since then, and my mom still lives alone. She and her boyfriend don't live together, and probably never will. They hang out at her house every Friday and Saturday, sleeping in separate rooms because her bed isn't big enough. She also refuses to stay at his place. Whenever they argue, my mom refuses to apologize, so he will ignore her, sometimes for weeks, sometimes for months. There have been multiple occasions where they haven't spoken for several months purely out of stubbornness. Because of the instability and lack of seriousness in their relationship, my brother and I hardly have any relationship with my mom's boyfriend. The only time we see or talk to him is during holidays or special celebrations. Additionally, my grandparents, my mom's parents, don't have much of a relationship with him either, and are much closer with my dad. This really annoys my mom. She has often told me that it's unfair that my grandparents favor my dad and my husband over her boyfriend. Story 47. My boyfriend's ex-wife, who he was with for 8 years, luckily they had no kids, cheated on him with a coworker. He found out the night before he had to take his state boards. She really humiliated him. They had been high school sweethearts. Out of curiosity, I naturally looked her up when we first got together and found that she and her boyfriend, unsure if he was the affair partner or not, had broken up. She was now living alone in an apartment. I don't like to wish ill on anyone, but I was happy to see she was single because my boyfriend is truly the sweetest and most hardworking person. He bought them a beautiful house and worked hard on earning his doctorate, while she apparently was bored and seeking attention. I also didn't like that her social media was initially listed under her maiden name. But once my boyfriend and I got together and he started posting about me, she changed her name back to his last name on all her accounts. I can understand keeping someone's last name if you have kids together, but they were only married for 3 years. I'm not sure why she would keep his last name, and then purposefully change it back to his literally 2 years after they'd been divorced, but whatever, lol. I deleted my other social media over a year ago, so I'm not sure how she's doing now, but hopefully karma has caught up with her. Story 48. I knew a girl who was a mistress for about 4 to 5 years. She was in her early 20s, and he was in his late 30s or early 40s. He had been married for about 15 years and had 4 kids with his wife. He strung the mistress along, telling her he'd get a divorce when the time was right. He eventually did get divorced, but only after his wife left him upon discovering the affair. The 25-year-old mistress was thrilled when he finally became hers, and they got married a couple of months after his divorce was finalized. Less than a year into their marriage, they started having issues, and the new wife, formerly the mistress, managed to convince herself that getting pregnant would somehow fix what was wrong. She couldn't or didn't get pregnant because it turned out he had a vasectomy and had never told her. About 6 months later, the ex-mistress found out her husband was having an affair with a 20-year-old girl. The young woman, tired of waiting for her man to leave his wife, showed up at the ex-mistress's house and told her to F off and leave my man alone because he's not in love with you anymore. The ex-mistress, now new wife, was quickly evicted, or left on her own, and became the ex-ex-mistress ex-wife. She remained convinced that if she had been able to get pregnant, he wouldn't have had an affair and left her. It took her a couple of years to find out about his vasectomy, which devastated her even further because he had lied to her their whole relationship. Oh, and she later found out that his first wife had actually been his side chick. He was cheating on his girlfriend with her, until the side chick got pregnant and became the first wife. Story 49. I wasn't the cheater, but shortly after I split from my wife, I got together with a younger woman who, it turns out, was cheating on her long-term partner when we started seeing each other. She swore it was over with him, but it became clear that it wasn't at the time. 10 years later, I discovered she had carried on a very long affair with one of her colleagues behind my back. Before I found out, I had noticed that she clearly wasn't interested in me anymore, but I resolved to make it work. She didn't have the courage to end things with me, and being with me was financially convenient for her. I finally ended it with her, and she got together with him officially shortly after. It's now clear that she had told all her friends and family that I was out of the picture when I wasn't, and that he was her new partner. What she was actually like started to unravel over time. She had cheated on her first serious boyfriend with the man she was with before me. She cheated on him to be with me, and then cheated on me to be with her new partner. All the men had something in common: money and the ability to advance or influence her career, and 3 out of the 4 were significantly older. I don't believe that everyone who cheats is a cheater for life, but she clearly is. Story 50. While I'm not sure if 2% is accurate, I do agree that the odds of success are really low. The vast majority of affairs, emotional or physical, aren't driven by a genuine desire to form a new primary relationship. Most people are chasing that intense new relationship energy, the honeymoon phase, which can feel exciting and intoxicating, but is ultimately a short-term rush. People also call it the affair fog, meaning your emotional and mental energy gets wrapped up in a fantasy. But whatever intimacy or excitement comes from an affair is nothing like making a series of sober, intentional decisions about building a life with someone. In fact, many, if not most, affairs are about trying to escape some part of a person's reality they're unhappy with. But as I'm emphasizing, an affair isn't about replacing reality A with reality B. It's about running from reality A, not thoughtfully choosing a new one. So yes, the odds of the new relationship working out are incredibly low because that relationship was never meant to go the distance. People don't choose an affair partner because they're looking for a new spouse or a long-term partner, or for the qualities that would actually make someone a good long-term match. In most cases, they chose their affair partner because that person was convenient, not because they were compatible. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up, subscribe, and hit the bell icon so you never miss an update.